Shadowing this historic event is this, the Candyman.
On overseas trips in particular, that Admiral would go down the aisleway of the airplane and say, all right, who wants to go to sleep, and hand out the prescription drugs
like they were candy. Like an Ambien type.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And put them to sleep and then give them the drugs to wake them back up again. That's the reports we got from the people, the 20-some people who got a hold of us and said, we've got a problem, this doctor has a problem, because he hands out prescriptions like candy. In fact, in the White House, they call him the Candyman.
And the Candyman claim isn't the only problem. There are also claims of a toxic work environment under Jackson and multiple reports of the president's personal physician becoming inebriated on overseas trips. In one case, in 2015, an allegedly intoxicated Jackson started banging on the hotel room door of a female employee. One source says the Secret Service stopped him, fearing he'd wake up then-President Barack Obama. Jackson is hanging tough and says he looks forward to getting his confirmation hearing rescheduled, even though President Trump seemed to deliberately point out the exit ramp.
What does he need it for? To be abused by a bunch of politicians that aren't thinking nicely about our country? I really don't think, personally, he should do it, but it's totally his. I would stand behind him, totally his decision.
Christopher Neiweem joins me now. He's an Iraq war vet and a former military police sergeant with the U.S. Army. Welcome, sir.
Good to be with you, Carol.
What do you make of this? Should Dr. Jackson just bow out and have nothing more to do with this?
Well, for the last several years, the VA has been reeling from serious problems, and the key leaders at the top have not been able to fully fulfill that commitment. And the president wants that fulfilled, and he sees traits, leadership traits in Admiral Jackson that he thinks would get that job done. So now, as always, when someone starts to succeed, things come out. So we need to look at those, and we need to find out if they're true and take a closer look before we can know that.
But don't you wish that these things had come out before?
Well, yeah, I mean, respectfully, Carol, I mean, where were the Obama folks when there was an alleged pill popper, running around and having these episodes? So I think we need to have a bipartisan vetting process for these things. I would have liked to see them sooner. And again, this was communicated to the Senate.
When you say bipartisan vetting, don't you mean President Trump's people? And that isn't bipartisan, because the president chose this man to head the VA.
That's absolutely true, but there's so many different eras of one's life, and remember, one can make mistakes and come back and do great things. So we need to find out really if they're true. But certainly, Senator Tester, I think, does a lot of great work.
I'm just going to push back a little, because if these things are
Sure.
true, the VA, I mean, they have terrible problems. The suicide rate among veterans is 22% higher than the non-veteran rate. The VA Inspector General came out and said problems still abound at the VA, especially at VA hospitals. Some hospitals still have to borrow supplies. Some hospitals still have inadequate staff. Don't you want an unblemished leader in that position to take care of the people who serve our country?
We sure do. I mean, President Trump led the way to getting the VA Accountability Act that was hung up under the Obama administration, allowing the secretary to fire that,
So why
frankly,
nominate this guy without vetting him?
Well, we're vetting him now. I mean, that's part of the process, is he's going to have to explain these things and figure out if they're true. But a real Candyman was actually who got veterans killed in Wisconsin. It took forever to get him fired under the union policies that President Trump was able to bust through. So I think he wants to see a leader in there that can get this done. Admiral Jackson, he's going to go through the vetting process, and we deserve answers. We think it's important. But, this is the president's selection. He wants to get the VA fixed, and he got the VA Accountability Act through. So I think we need to give him his day in front of Congress, and I think that day will be soon.
Dr. Jackson still wants it. We'll see if it actually happens. Christopher Neiweem, thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, Carol.
You're welcome.